The conquest of the South Pole was one of the most dramatic episodes of the heroic age of Antarctic exploration, a period when several nations sought prestige by reaching the last unexplored regions of the Earth. At the beginning of the 20th century, Antarctica remained largely unknown. Its interior was a vast frozen plateau surrounded by immense ice shelves, crossed by dangerous glaciers, and dominated by extreme cold, violent winds, and months of darkness. Reaching the geographic South Pole became a powerful symbol of national achievement, and the race eventually centered on two main expeditions, one led by the Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen, and the other commanded by the British officer Robert Falcon Scott. Amundsen, who had already gained fame for navigating the Northwest Passage, carefully prepared his Antarctic expedition with a clear and focused objective: to reach the pole as efficiently as possible. He established his base camp, Framheim, in the Bay of Whales on the Ross Ice Shelf, positioning himself closer to the pole than his rivals. His strategy was based on experience and practicality. He relied on dog sledges and skis, selected skilled skiers, wore fur clothing suited to polar conditions, and organized precise supply depots along the route. During the Antarctic winter, his team carefully planned every detail of the journey, marking depots with wide lines of flags to ensure they could be easily found on the return trip across the featureless ice. Scott's British Terra Nova Expedition had broader goals. In addition to aiming for the pole, it included an important scientific program involving geological and meteorological research. The British established their base at Cape Evans on Ross Island. However, Scott's transport strategy proved more complicated and less reliable. He brought motor sledges, ponies, dogs, and also relied on men hauling heavy sledges themselves. The motor sledges soon broke down, and the ponies struggled in the deep snow and freezing temperatures, eventually being lost. As a result, much of the burden fell on the men, who had to pull heavy loads across hundreds of miles of ice, greatly increasing fatigue and reducing their physical reserves. In October 1911, Amundsen set out with a small team of 5 men and 52 dogs. They crossed the Ross Ice Shelf and climbed the previously unexplored Axel Heiberg Glacier to reach the Antarctic Plateau. Despite crevasses and severe cold, their use of skis and dogs allowed steady progress. Amundsen made pragmatic decisions, including sacrificing weaker dogs to feed the others, ensuring survival and efficiency. On 14 December 1911, his team reached the geographic South Pole. They carefully confirmed their position with navigational instruments, planted the Norwegian flag, and left a tent containing a letter for Scott in case the British arrived later. After taking measurements, they safely returned to base in January 1912, completing a remarkably well-executed expedition. Scott's final polar party began its last march in November 1911. After ascending the Beardmore Glacier and enduring worsening weather and exhaustion, Scott chose to include 5 men in the final group: himself, Edward Wilson, Henry Bowers, Lawrence Oates, and Edgar Evans. This decision strained supplies and tent space. On 17 January 1912, they reached the South Pole, only to discover Amundsen's tent and the Norwegian flag. The disappointment was immense, but the greatest tragedy occurred during the return journey. Evans died from injuries and exhaustion, and Oates, suffering from severe frostbite, sacrificed himself by walking into a blizzard in hopes of saving his companions. Scott, Wilson, and Bowers continued on, but were eventually trapped by a violent storm just miles from a supply depot. They died in their tent in March 1912. Months later, a search party found their bodies and Scott's diary, which described their final days with courage and dignity. The conquest of the South Pole thus represents both triumph and tragedy. Amundsen's success demonstrated the importance of careful planning and adaptation to the environment, while Scott's fate became a powerful symbol of endurance and heroic sacrifice.